Sure, sure.
So welcome, Sheetal. Thanks for being a GAP member, and thanks for doing this talk for us. This is a Gupshup talk. So we are on a virtual coffee table, and it's like bring your own coffee kind of experience. So welcome to this session, and we would like to know you through this talk today. We would like to start with understanding your current profile at Arezzo, and maybe because it's not probably a lot of people do not know about Arezzo. So if you can tell us what is the company all about and what is your role in India, right? So what do you do? And I think you do manage a couple of other countries as well. So I'll let you talk about it.
Okay, so basically, Arezzo Sky Group is into business process outsourcing, and in that we cater to a brand called Optimize, basically, who are our premium clients right now. And what we do for them is right from services delivery to research and development to marketing, sales, and even the shared services center for operations, so like finance, HR, all of it. So that's what Arezzo Sky Group comprises about. And we are globally like 350 people with one office in India. There are two offices in Romania, which is in Bucharest and Iași, and we have one office in Singapore. So currently my profile right now is to manage all those companies right now. They come under my purview. So it's mostly right extends from finance to operations and to the business side of it, and being kind of the face for Arezzo Sky India for Optimize. That's the shortest profile I can tell you right now.
Wow, that sounds quite a lot in terms of headlines, So I'm sure there's a deep silo in each one of them.
Yeah.
I was just in fact remembering, almost 20 years back, I met you at the parking of SP College after the one of our CA final examinations, and I asked you kind of how was your exam, and you gave me that look. With a similar smile that you don't ask such questions to, CA students, right? So I realized, and of course you did pass out with flying colors, and you had a successful stint till where you are. So take us back to your first job and take us through your journey. So after you qualified.
Okay, so honestly, I mean, you said I passed with flying colors. That's not the truth, Rishi. We all know.
Anybody who passes, see, I'm taking the credit for myself as well. Passing itself is flying colors, right?
So I know, exactly. So we just pass out. That's a good thing. And if somebody is going to come and tell me that, would you like to appear for the exams again for CA? I'm like no.
True. I think everybody on the call would agree with you. Oops.
I think I got muted right now. Okay.
Yeah, you're back.
Myself. Okay. So yeah, CA was one of a game changer for me, I think. So basically in 10th, you're like used to being in the top 10 and all, and then you have this thing about it. You do everything, you can conquer the world, but CA gets you back to reality that you're just one among the many. And then to sail through, it's a challenge. Of course, it's a challenge. And when you get to the practical aspect of it, the articleship, that is where I loved it, I mean, that is where I got most of my exposure, I think. So that's how it started. And after passing my CA, I dragged through, but I passed. So that credit is there. But then I joined Eaton Group of companies, but that was as an independent consultant through my chartered accountant firm. And that is where I came into the corporate world. So initially for us, the chartered account firms were typical firms where you had exposure just to audits, and we didn't have a lot of statutory audits. But yeah, Eaton then was, and I think so that was the time where the government had launched the STPI scheme. So there were a lot of IT companies who were investing in Pune. So Eaton was the first step for me to understand this is how the corporate culture works to start with. So I started with that. I was there for around 1.5 years. Then suddenly I think in my Gmail, I saw in my spam an opening for a company called Synergy. And a very
in your spam.
In my spam, so a very good friend of mine who was with Synergy, and he used to tell me all this fancy stuff that how it is like a US based company, it's over here, and the crowd is like, it's as if it's like a college going crowd, and then we have this monthly parties called Herbert's where they serve beer and pizza every month, and then we have all of these things, and the kind of work, it's all young crowd and all. And I was like, wow, there are companies who exist like this. And he used to be in awe of the management and the CEO and everything. And then I was like, dude, I just got this in my mail. You never referred me. You're like, if you want, come in. So that interview is when it started with Synergy, and I still remember it was Sankranti in 2004, I think, 2005 in fact, and that's where the journey started in Synergy. So earlier we were called Synergy, and then we had a brand change, and then we went to Arezzo and Optimize and all of that stuff. So that's how the career stint started in 2005, and I'm still.
And you joined as what in
I
Synergy?
joined as an
If you
entry-level
remember.
accountant. As an entry-level accountant, we were called the finance associate out over there. And
Okay.
the fun part too is that I used to manage payroll then. So it used to be like my first thing, even I do it the ascending or the descending. I still have that habit whenever I get bonus or the payroll, I have that habit of doing an ascending and descending part of it. So the first thing I realized was I was the third lowest paid in that company. And that was quite a shocker for me, Rishi, that I being a chartered accountant and the third lowest paid, I was like, oh my God, I struggled for all this 5, 6 years and this is what it is. And I think so it's not about the pay, but I think so that's kind of an awakening when you see that, okay, you have a long way to go and this is how the world is. So you have to have that visibility and you have to announce yourself somewhere in this course. And I
Okay.
was like, no, I have to go way ahead. So let's see how it starts with. And that's how it started with the journey from over here.
Mm-hmm.
Of how it's been the past. And it's been like good 15 plus years with this organization thing.
So what thoughts that observation put in your mind that you are amongst the lowest in that list? So, and then what did you do thereafter to change that scenario?
No, the first thing I was like, okay, I didn't negotiate well. And then I learned the tactics of negotiation. I was like, you don't have to be always nice. You have to have the ask. So asking is a key, I think. So the ask, what you
Okay.
ask for is the key to start with. So then it was out over there. And honestly, the opportunities like fell in the plate over a period of time. And I said, one of the things what I realized was that we have to have that visibility. You have to take the ownership to show and showcase what all you are good at or what you can do and offer. So that is where I kind of got that thing that maybe more than payroll, there are other things that I can start managing and there could be an ownership. So I used to speak to my mentor a lot. And honestly, there is where I learned that we had a mentor-mentee relationship. It was never a manager and a boss or anything. So the notion of a mentor and mentee, I learned in 2005. And that was so different than a typical manager boss. So we could openly speak about it. We had an open door culture then in 2005. We could just walk in our MD's office or our mentor's office and ask for it, sit across. And that culture also inhibited a lot of positive thought process saying that, okay, so you are heard. Even today, every person is heard in this company with whatever thoughts. Maybe we don't take it ahead, but that was one thing which played a big role in getting what I wanted to. And then things, the way I said, things fell in place that my senior, whom I used to report into right now, um, I think so she moved on because she was pregnant. And then I was the only one out over there. And then it was like I started managing the team and gradually we invested in Romania then. So even there from that perspective to set up Romania, to get those accounts, to consolidating it, then it was the Romania bit of it. And then we got the US part of it. So gradually from a finance perspective, I started working on all kind of arenas and locations that we could have. So maybe I didn't say no then for a lot of things that just came on my plate. I said, okay, I'll take it up, whatever it is. So that's how it started, I think.
So some very important points, and I can relate to say when I was talking to Vinesh in the first Gupshup, so he had very similar. So one of the things that you didn't say no to a lot of things that came to your way. You made yourself visible and showcase that you could probably handle more than just your profile. And yes, and some good things like your boss got pregnant and moved out, so you got to that. So yes, but when we say things fell on plate, it actually I firmly believe it may seem so, but that plate has to be still visible, right? And to be there on the right place for things to fall in, right? And that is what we do, right? So, does it mean that after your first boss, you really did not have a boss in India, then you started picking up from there, or where you did get other MDs in
So
place?
I had a lot of mentors around, and my
Okay.
CFO or the directors were there in the US. So there was
Yes.
naturally a parallel reporting. But from an India perspective, I was the one who was leading the show then after that. And I'll tell you a fun part of it. I mean, she was not my boss actually. She was a colleague, but I used to report on her. She was my mentee. And then she took a break for a good 8 years. And 2 years back, I got her back into the team. So
Okay.
she works with me right now, and we are in the same team actually, is what I would say. But again, I mean, the rapport kind of we created, and we worked for only 8 months, Rishi, but the rapport we'd had, and I told her that, see, I'm getting you back, but the nature of what it was of the relationship has changed right now. Are you going to be okay with that? Because it's going to be a complete switch. She was like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you deserved it, so I came back. So even that relation also went out well. I think so. That's one. That the visibility part of it, Rishi, is very important. I think so. And I don't know from, and I was always an introvert, honestly. Maybe I'm speaking to I, but I was an introvert, honestly, comparatively. So it was like typical finance, the bean counters who will punch in the data, accountants, and we used to sit in a small room with your ID cards and passwords. Nobody could enter the room. But gradually, I think so. If you want me to cite an example of how the journey started, I can.
Yes.
You want me
yes.
to? Okay. Yeah. So 4-5 years, I was into core accounting. I think so. That's one thing.
4-5 years.
4-5 years core accounting, just finance and accounts. That's what my forte. And I had some change of mentors. And I think so. The one thing that changed for me is we had a cafe in the IT hub, and you know how IT folks are pampered, right? They feel रोज का एकदम लजीज अच्छा खाना चाहिए with changes, sweet ये वो. And somehow I mean, I'm a foodie, so that I had an inclination for it. And one of my colleagues was a part of a food improvement team over there. And she was least interested. She was in HR. She was like, roj ka jag hai ya, she felt kya hai ye wo. So there were a couple of ideas that I introduced to her in terms of this. And we were not getting those budgets, those lavish budgets that we could have. So I kind of tweaked some things for her to help her say that, okay, if this is the budget, just don't ask for a flat budget. Just say that 2 days we'll give some executive stuff and all good stuff that we can. And that's where I thought that maybe it's not just finance is not my thing, but I could try operations also. So that simple example I was telling you that, I mean, some of them, you guys would call me foolish that this is not an example which would trigger it. But then you start to relate that, okay, you have that inclination to do other stuff. And even food, one thing that said is that the options kind of when you present to the management, that has to appeal. So you're achieving your goal, but how you achieve it is a way that you can say. It could be like 10 to 15 other options, but you have to understand how that person in front of you thinks, right? So if you're going to say that, nay, I need 100 rupees of budget, nobody's going to come and say, yeah, take it 100 rupees. But if you put it in such a way that you finally achieve that 100 plus what comes as an offer or offering to the rest of the things, I think so that is where I could manage and relate it with the management. And that's where it started with the food part of it. So I got into the FIT committee. And there were a couple of other things that we were working on from an HR perspective that was especially about the non-compete agreements and a lot of other stuff. And that's where my mentor was very, very supportive of me in doing in all these things. He was like, Sheetal, can you just go through it as a third? Take a third eye. I would like to go through all these things. And he got me introduced to the VP of HR then, who is now the CEO with World at Work. Amazing person. So then we started speaking to him, and then I had certain points, and that's where I got dragged into the HR part of it from the legal perspective. But yeah, that is how it happened. And I think so the most important part happened was that when we were looking for a new office, and I was nowhere part of it. I didn't know what a CAD CAM was. I didn't know what architects were or whatever it was. But that was one thing when my mentor said, would you like to come and see the offices? I would like to get a female's perspective, because men are like colorblind. He was like, I don't understand the colors. I mean, the difference between the red and pink is very like, it doesn't make a difference to me.
You guys know peach also.
Yeah. So we know the degrees of variation colors. He was like, this is where I'm struggling. And our CEO is like a double graduate from MIT. And for me, honestly, MIT tab tha Maharashtra Institute of Technology. That's the brain that I had. I couldn't even pronounce
our MIT.
Yeah. So he was like a civil engineer from MIT, and he had this passion and hobby of being an architect, you know. So he wanted to design all the offices. And even today, our offices are replica of each other. Same across all countries. That is what we have meant it, colorful and all of that. So he's like, we'll come and see the office. That's what part of it. And that's how it started. When we started working with the architects, the interiors and all of it. And fortunately or unfortunately, when we started doing all of these things, though I was not really working on it like 100%, he had to move on from the company for certain reasons. And then it was like, who's going to do that? So it was like, I would be taking it over. And I had absolutely no clue. But in those 8 to 10 months, we designed, developed, executed, and launched an office of 26,000 square feet in that 7 to 8 months, right? So that's how I learned a lot of things. And I realized that if you have the willingness, if you have the ownership, and you want to do it, and that's where you have to showcase it, that, and that's where you get highlighted in all these things. So that's where the journey started of the deviation. But plus I had immense support from all my mentors, everybody who's working, and we used to work all across the location. So the architects were, I mean, the main designer was, I mean, our CEO was in the US and Singapore at the same time shuffling. The architects were in Romania, another set of architects were in India. So that kind of thing to coordinate, manage it all, plus the finance, and we were going through a global restructuring also throughout the countries about forming companies and all of that. So those 2 years were like the peak of me getting the knowledge and the learnings that possible. But what I told you that it helped me was that I was open to accepting anything and everything that I wanted to do right now, just for the organization and for me myself, because there was a lot of learning. So
I think that's a very good point, and I feel a lot of people don't take that chances, saying that I am a finance guy. They are too comfortable in that word that I should not be doing this. I should not be in the cafeteria, and I should not be building offices, and I'm a finance guy. So I think you took your chances, and you kind of enjoyed the role as well. But there are two things that are coming to my mind. I'm very keen to know from this experience. One is you said you were an introvert, as a when you qualified, and initial days you were a typical accountant that all of us were. So how and when in the process, Sheetal, the leader, started coming out of you, and you because what you're telling me, it required. I'm sure it required a lot of interaction with people in India, people in Europe, in US, and it's not easy for us in early years of our life, just to get exposed, and they have their different way of talking, culture, and they don't start to the point where we are too used to starting to the point, right? So you have to do a little bit of chit chat, which I have myself experienced that in early years is kind of uncomfortable, right? We are just getting to get to the point. So you need to be, and you need to lead, and you need to lead people who are not of your domain, right? Like you said, engineers, architects, administrative, HR. So you are not naturally, domain wise their leader. So that's one thing I want to know. And I'm also adding the other question to this, and you can combine and say, or whatever. How much of you being finance person or a chartered accountant actually also helped you do all these roles, right? In terms of your thinking process, your presentation to the management, like you said, just asking for budget is one thing, but I'm sure being a finance person, you would probably understand their thought process of evaluating and releasing it. So things like that. So I want to know these two aspects and how they played out. I may make you think here, but yes, that's the whole point.
Okay, so maybe the second question is that as a chartered accountant, yeah, I mean, that's a valid question. I think so. What we have done in our CA courses is that we were privileged to have the articleship, which is a very practical experience. And then we interacted with a lot of people. So you had different sets of people that you had to even balance out and talk with. That was one thing I think so we got the experience. Plus in CA, I think so what helped was that number was one thing, numbers was always there, but you have different facets of things. So when you have to solve a problem, I think so whenever it is to be, you used to think from a direct tax perspective, an indirect tax perspective, a tax perspective, financial, all of it put together. So it was not just one thing. We had to look at any kind of a problem that we had. I mean, whatever questions they used to ask us, it had a lot of perspectives to it. So you used to use all the knowledge that you gauged in the practical plus theoretical and put it out over here. I think so that helped cultivate it, knowingly or unknowingly, but that really helps, Rishi, I think. I mean,
yes,
for example,
very well said.
Yeah. So, I mean, just from the numbers perspective, if I have to tell my boss that basically, or my CEO saying that this is what I want, or these are the numbers what we want, but there is always a behavioral trait to it also. So you have to understand how that person perceives it and what he likes basically. So you either you go with the person saying that he's going to say no, and then you ask him, okay, what do you want? And you always have that in your mind, okay, this is what you want. So you get it executed that way. Or you present in such an options that it is going to be favorable for both the parties. So that's one thing. So this is where I think so CA helped me basically to get this outlook and the mindset that you could correlate with 4 to 5 situations at one point of time. It is not one thing that you think of. So in my thing, I think so what helped is that from the numbers perspective, we just don't look at the numbers. We look at whether are there any incentives that the government is offering, or when you're forming a company, for example. So which country would you go to where there are incentives? It is going to be tax friendly, a lot of other stuff, the economic part of it, whether it is going to be the stability part of it. So all countries, the talent, skill, even cities and all of it. So with the numbers also, you do a lot of behavioral traits, other analysis and analytics to it. So that kind of helped me, I think so, to bridge it is what I think.
Very well said. I think we can caption this and share it with ICAI. This can be a great seller to the young aspirants, because I think what you hit the nail on the head. I think most of us do not realize it when we are going through that hardship of articleship, and we kind of hate it. But I think you really put it well, that looking back, those are the things that really help in the corporate.
Right. And I can
Absolutely.
tell you, I worked with a lot of people in Romania, US, India, and then Singapore. Everybody has different personality traits. I mean, the Romanians, for as such, they're very strong. I mean, they will not budge whatsoever. So an Indian to like be a leader for that country, it took me a time to penetrate it. The thing is that to accept someone there, and also, I mean, I'm not saying that it was wrong or it's not on wrong, but it's how they are made, and this is how we are made. So I think so the one thing I was able to balance is that I didn't march in as a manager or a boss in front of them. Whenever I got that opportunity to work with the Romania team, first it was not so, we had a quite a lot of like, we were at loggerheads with each other, but then that was because we were part of different teams. So it was okay, then I had someone who could manage and balance it out. But for me to go and say that, okay, now I'm going to gradually lead you or whatever it is, I don't want to call as a leader, it was easier instead of a boss or a manager. And I still have a counterpart out over there. Oh my God, we used to be at loggerheads all the time. I was like, it was very difficult. But gradually, I think so what helped was when I visited Romania and we had a one-on-one conversation. I mean, we can't believe that we have such a beautiful relationship as a mentor and a mentee developed over the years, because we get to know each other's perspective and what it is. And at the end of the day, the goal is the same. It's just the different ways and mannerisms on how you're going to achieve it, I think. So everyone has their own styles. The only thing is how you're going to balance it out, like saying that, okay, you do your way, but this is the end, this is my way. So let's collaborate and get it done. So I think so those are a couple of things that helped from a people's perspective for me.
Wow, awesome. I think you make it sound simpler than it must have been from my own experience.
It was.
Tell us more about some of the more difficult situations when you think, yeah, finance hi acha tha, why did I get into general management, which is more of headache. Did you ever feel like that?
Honestly, no. I realized the other way around. No, in the sense that, see, honestly, over a period of time, I cultivated as a people's person. I don't know how. I mean, the one thing is that even now, if you ask me to address like 150, 100 people, I mean, everybody be jittery. And I told you, I was nervous even now, right? When we are speaking about it, as we speak about it. So yesterday I was like, what am I going to speak? So I was still an introvert and all of these, but there have been difficult situations from the finance part of it where you're just number crunching. I think so the most difficult part for me has been the people management and understanding people's perspective and getting them to understand that we have to achieve one common goal. So that's been the most difficult situation. And I think so when it comes to the legal side of it, or when it comes to like when you have a posh committee in place, you lead that committee and there are cases out over there. I think so that is where when the behavioral aspect comes, when you don't know whether the answer 1 is right, 2 is right, or 3 is right, because it's behavioral. That's the time I was like, okay, this is the worst of it all. But one brilliant example I can cite is with this COVID situation. What we were in Feb and what we are right now, it's like dramatically changed. It's 180 degrees turn. And I told you about the example of me setting the office, right? So that I was on a real high, it was a real achievement for me when that office was inaugurated. I kind of addressed the people. I was like, I couldn't speak. I was so nervous that time, but I said, okay, welcome to the office. That is, at least I could mutter out over there. But that was an achievement for me. I mean, it was a wonderful office that was set up, good investments made for a size of company like us. And to this date, when I think so it's 6 years, 7 years we have been in that office. When I had to give that office up, that was the worst ever decision, where I felt, I mean, for one moment I felt that it's done and I should have stuck to something like just numbers. Because the thing is that I had to face the management, I had to face the people out over here and try to explain them that why are we giving up this office? Because everything was fine till March, and suddenly in April we are like, we are just giving up this office. We don't have an office anywhere. So to go back to people and tell them that, okay, this is the need of the hour, and we cannot have all the emotions and empathy towards these things because this has a cost. So we could divert this cost. And I mean, any of the CEOs or the businessmen are pretty shrewd, right? They don't have all the emotions and the empathy that we would carry as a talent or HR person or a people's person. So we have only one way of looking at things, but these guys think from the futuristic perspective of what it is. And if I think right now that was 8 months and another 5 months, we're not going to occupy the office. But to give up that office saying that we are never going to occupy it back again, I think so that was one thing that hit me the most in all of these things, that I would never go back to that office, and I'm not going to go back to that office. Maybe you'll start with something new, but I think so for your example, this is one of the most difficult situations.
You got emotionally attached to your baby, basically.
Absolutely. It was my baby. Honestly, it was my baby where it started. But I was happy that I nurtured the baby so well that that emotional part of it was only for some time, but I know it was for the good. Jo hota hai, achhe ke liye hota hai maybe. And
but in this whole experience, do you think there's also one more lesson for you at a leadership level? We need to take probably those tougher decisions, which which may be very emotional for people, but you need to be having a thicker skin.
I know you have to have the thicker skin, and that's what. See, as a company policy, we are very supportive of employees, but we have had layoffs a couple of months. Last year, the year before, we had to do this. And that was one of the toughest part, when you have to go to people and tell them that this is a message. Of course, we secured them with some months of pay, but then, and personal perspective of them comes into picture when you're giving that conversation, right? They come up and tell us with so many problems that they're going through. And especially like men, normally men are not that vocal, right? They don't display their emotions or what it is. But when you're giving this kind of a message to them saying that today is your last day in the office and this is how we have carved it out, and that is, and they had like, okay, I'm dealing through this, I'm dealing through that and this, and it makes you feel so small out of this, that what are you trying to do? And now that you say that the thing maybe you felt that you regretted, that could be those one things when you have to tell people that you don't no longer have a job, and somebody's telling you that I have so many EMIs, I'm going through separation, I have a child, and this is what it is. And that's when you think that, oh, this man has been smiling throughout. He walks in front of your cabin and always has a smile on his face. And today it is like a complete different story. So that's one. So that's when you have that thick skin kind of a thing, right? Because this is right for the business. So that's a learning.
You need to become probably closer to the legal entity than the people. I think that definitely that's tougher.
And you can't have it all, I think so, Rishi, in all of these things. I mean, sometimes you have to take a call. I don't know what is right or what is wrong. There is no right, no wrong. But for the circumstance,
let me ask you another tough question, which is logical to what you are saying as the next, that how lonely it is being at the top.
Oh, you are answering so much fantastic questions, and I can resonate this to my mentor. Absolutely, Rishi. 2 years.
Well, everybody is aspiring to become a CEO, but there's only one CEO, and you don't have friends anymore in the company. Is that true?
It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. So it's not about friends, but he told me one thing. He quit 2 years back, and I was like, we used to work wonders. He is a Polish, Romanian, but he is in Poland. And somehow we worked very well, very well. And when he told me that the decision that he's decided to move on, I was like, I crumpled. But he said, Sheetal, this is your chance. You're going to take over the role that I do. So he was a managing director then with the Arezzo group of companies. He was like, so don't get emotional. That's one thing that you have to learn. I mean, somebody's loss is somebody's gain. And me moving on is going to create an opportunity. So I have my reasons of moving on, not necessarily you should just follow me just because of it. It shouldn't be a herd mentality. You decide for yourself, there's nothing to lose. He said, just one thing, Sheetal, as you go up the ladder, you become very lonely. So stay close to some people that you would need advice on. And those people are not going to be eventually the one who are your peers. So that's going to be a trouble for you. So sometimes when you want to dwell on certain things, when you want to like explode, it's like very difficult for you. I mean, you can't go back even to your family and tell them because maybe they do not resonate to it, or maybe even if you have a very good friend, they might not think in the same mindset. So when we were giving up the office, we were having a lot of layoffs. Some of them, when I used to speak to, you, like, yeah, part and parcel of your life, ye hai, wo hai. But I was like, do you realize that I have an emotional attachment? It's so difficult every day going through that same thought process. But yes, you won't have so many friends as such. But honestly, in all these years, I've had a wonderful supportive team, and even my mentors have been amazing in all of this. And that's why where I am. I mean, it's just purely because of the team that I have. And I tend to believe in, uh, I mean, I just practice what I preach. So that becomes easier for me. So there are no two ways of doing things. But the team support and my mentors and all have been really, really supportive. So that's helped in whatever ways.
Okay, so let's compare it with say if you were a CFO, if you had landed as a finance head, whatever the designation may be, versus now that you are managing finance also, right? So it's part of it. How different is the perspective required? I know somebody who is ambitious that I don't want to stop at being a director finance or CFO, whatever it is, but I want to really move to the final corner office. What is the difference in the approach, perspective, attitude that is required? Now that you are from the top, you can see everybody there, right? So what do you think?
So I think if you want to really aspire to get to and explore the other aspects of the business functions, I think you should be closely related to the business. You can't be sitting in a silo in a finance room and just crunching your numbers and making your debits and credits. You have to think beyond it. And honestly, Rishi, if you see, we say finance में बहुत काम होता है, हम यही कर रहे हैं, वही कर रहे हैं. But in your daily process also, if you just look at it from an internal control perspective, there are a lot of things or other things that you can improvise on. But we're just used to do that redundancy, right? Roj ka kaam hai, karo nikal jao. But a very few people of this would think that, okay, we need to partner with a lot of business guys. I mean, for example, that is one thing that after I started working with this office setup and all of those things, I naturally started speaking to a lot of the business heads actually, just to understand from the requirements, basic requirements of how the sitting is and what it is and how it is. And honestly, till then, you don't even know what your product does. In a lot of companies, the people don't know what their product does or what services are being offered or what is being
Exactly.
offered. Nobody wants to know that. Because sometimes it is like when you have your company meetings in the first 4 or 5 years, whatever CEOs and our like R&D folks used to talk, it used to be like Hebrew for us. I was like, "Ye kya baat kar rahe?" I mean, you don't understand it because it speaks at a very technical perspective. I
Yes.
think one of the things that is very important is that whenever you have this finance hurdles or what all these things are, you should involve the business side to give you just an overview of what's happening from a business perspective. So how you can finance can work with them closely to get things happen. I think so that is one thing that you have to be collaborative towards all your business partners, whether it is talent, whether it is IT, whether it is like R&D, sales and marketing, just to understand what it is. If you know your basics also of what they're doing, you don't need to do the codings, you don't need to know what the full stack it is, what Python does or whatever it is. I mean, they're still jargons to us. But at least once you understand what the business side is, that helps to develop the thought process which you can embed in your financial decisions also. That's really, really required. So if you can ask the right questions, I mean, somebody,
Right.
I'll give an example. So I was speaking to someone from cloud services and they were like, okay, for data processing, this is the kind of storage I need on the servers. This is the client, this is what it is. And naturally, you don't know what it is. You were like, yeah, we did this, we did that. And they get into their own storytelling, right? So for a finance person to challenge that, you have no clue of what they do. I mean, how do you host it on a cloud? How does AWS work and all of this? But then if that person is challenging certain things, I think so you should need to speak to someone else from that group. And it could be a person on the ground level also who actually does that work vis-a-vis the leader, who will give you the actual aspects of how things work. I mean, the business leader might not give you an overview, but the person at a ground level who is actually in creating that data warehousing or maintaining servers, how it works, it could be like he's a storyteller to you, right? Saying that this is how we do, this is what we work. And then you're like, oh, this is how it works. Because some of them would speak in jargons and the technical terms, so that is naturally to elude you from understanding what exactly to do. But if you go to like 2 or 3 levels below, they kind of open up and tell you this is what pride they take in doing. So naturally, it becomes easier for you to understand. So I had a couple of people in the company who I still speak to in terms of to understand that, because there are a lot of messages that the CEO gives in terms of no code, this, that, a lot of things. We're going to the no code part of it. Then there is a lot of other things being built up. Honestly, I didn't know what no code is, but no code yani haan, theek hai, code nahi lagta. But you still need coders, like that doesn't mean that you
चलता
eradicate.
कैसे?
Chalta kaise hai? So I was like, no code, then what do we do? It's just that we speak. So then you go back to the business saying that, okay, I don't understand it. I think so. The most important thing, Rishi, is to ask the questions. You could just be as dumb questions as possible, but if you're not convinced with what the basics and fundamentals are, I don't think so we'll be able to adapt it anyways. So that is one thing that helped me to understand the business perspective. And then I could blend it with finance and ops and everything. And that's where that progress happened. And naturally, the group I could start handling in terms of the business perspective also.
I think, Sheetal, that was a very, very brilliant example where you mentioned about how to understand business, not necessarily always from the leaders, because they will definitely throw jargons, but from somewhere 2, 3 levels down. And these are the strategies one should adopt to really get what they want. I think my only complaint with the fraternity, and especially the young guys now that we have spent good time, is that they do not really, get out of their function and explore the business, right? And they always feel nahi hum to finance ke, I'm a finance. And whenever I've seen example, you are one of them, and whoever I've seen who has done that, who has stepped out of their function, have definitely done very well in their career and have grown, because you are finance. Finance can never be taken out of you, right? But you need to get out of finance and explore more. And that is one thing that people need to do more often. People are too, and today also when I was speaking to a couple of them on phone, everybody is like, we are too busy in numbers. We have quarter end closing, month end closing, and it's like you start enjoying swimming there, with the with the numbers, and that's where you never get to know what your products are and what you actually need to do. So a great example. So before I let a few other people ask questions, any final thoughts from you? Any regrets that something that you could have done better, possibly, and any final thoughts?
I think so. Sometimes I get into my comfort zone, and the way I said that, "Jo mold mein hai," I continue with that. Maybe once you look back, there are a lot of things that I could have embedded in this company, and that's somewhere. Sometimes I need that push also. I get into that comfort zone and become a little lazy and kind of procrastinate quite a bit, honestly. So that's something where I need a shake. But honestly, in this organization, it's been a very dynamic organization, though it's a smaller one with like 400 employees, and change has been the only constant. So that has kept me on my toes. But I think I could have worked much more on the business side, is what I'm thinking. I still could have done this pretty earlier.
Were there any difficult moments from the engineering teams and the business side where they thought, now how will she know what we are doing? And did they ever give you tough time, negative vibes that made you feel uncomfortable, and and probably that's where you went and learned more about it?
Yeah, so once or twice there are some people you have that, right? They will portray kind of a fairy tale for you that काम करना है कि मोबाइल यहाँ से वहां पे उठाना है और रखना है, but that story goes out कि how I picked the mobile, what it is. So there are some people that way, and then they're leading you into a trap, but you can't really challenge them because you have no knowledge of what they do. So there were some incidences, but fortunately then if that did not work for me, then I used to go on somebody else. Then I used to go to another department or another leader saying that, okay, this is what I was told, but I want you to vet whether this is true. I need a third eye to it. So it could have been an external consultant. It could have been my procurement guy. So even in IT, if we had to procure something, there used to be like, this is what is required. This is how it is. But you have no clue, right? If you speak about servers, if you speak about Palo Alto and all these jargons, you have no clue why you need it. But then you need a third person to vet it for you, saying that, and that has to be kind of a confidant or someone that you always go to, saying that, okay, the IT guy said that. Does the R&D or the testing guys agree to that? Is this what your requirements are, or how is it? Then you can go back to Romania, US, or saying that this is what I was told, but I need to make sure. It's not that I don't trust them, but naturally for me to go ahead and give an approval. So that's where sometimes you get dragged or sidetracked, but then you yourself have to be smart enough to realize that this is how we'll have to do that.
And keep your logical thinking hat on.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Right.
Brilliant. I think you are definitely a role model. You may say things like, it fell on your plate and you had good mentors, but I think these things come to people who deserve it. It cannot be a coincidence that, but I think you really deserved it to reach where you are. And I'm so proud to be talking to a batchmate who has reached this level. So I feel honored and proud about this. So congratulations, Sheetal, for your success. I would leave the stage open for any of the members. A few of them are online. Anything you want to ask, Sheetal, please go ahead and do that. It's open now. We have another batchmate here, Anand.
I know, I saw Anand. It was good to see him.
Anand, nice to see you here.
Hey.
Hi, Rishi. How are you?
Good.
Good to see you, Anand.
Same here. Sorry, I was off video because I have a 14-month-old daughter, so she keeps on knocking and everything.
No, that's okay. Initially, it helps because we wanted to hear and see Sheetal. But yeah, go ahead, ask your question to her.
I have just one thing, Sheetal, that actually even my brother, he's now aspiring to start his own venture or something of that sort. What are a couple of things which you would suggest or you would think, and even for me as well, that which helps a person to keep going, and even in current times, because it's not an easy time to sustain an existing business and of course to start a new one. So what exactly would you say or suggest?
I think so. Everybody needs to understand that risk-taking capacity, I think. I mean, the more you're averse to risk, the more it is easier for you. And then you know that the returns that you get are going to be directly proportional to the hard work that you put in and everything. It's directly proportional, right? So now, I think so, honestly, if you trust yourself, you have the right networking around, and you have the risk appetite, I think so, this is what will help. I mean,
and when you say risk appetite or risk taking, it is both financially as well as emotionally.
Absolutely. Emotionally moving out to take that decision. I mean, honestly, 16 years, I've never even thought about moving out of this company, but I can't even imagine that. But when it comes to a time where we have to take this decision, I think so we are completely accountable for it, right? So it's not about your family or anybody else. You are the own person who are going to take the returns about it directly. So the support will be there, but if we can believe ourselves saying that we're going to make it big and we want to follow what we love to do, I think so that's it. Otherwise, daily ka.
I think Sheetal is now well trained to be alone in decision making and take responsibility of it.
Yeah, so here is that you have to be accountable for whatever you are doing, honestly. I mean, the credit, if you're going to take it, might as well, if you're not going to do well, you'll have to own it up both ways. So you will have to make a decision somewhere in your life. I think so. It's the right time to make any decision. I mean, honestly, there is no right time actually.
Yeah, and every time is right.
Every time is right, exactly. So, ये कल करेंगे, परसों करेंगे, होगा भी नहीं या कभी भी नहीं होगा. So, if you think and you have a strong instinct, of course, everything comes with a risk. But then I'm sure we have vetted ourselves better in terms of if you have a financial stability and you have thought about it well, that you can sustain for the next 2 years with the kind of funds that you've created. then you can always move on. And of course, and if we fail, which is okay, then you can come back. But it shouldn't be such that you never tried things, because then it is like, then you keep on regretting later. So everybody's risk-taking appetite is
That's a
different. I
good
mean, if you
point.
ask me, I want to be an entrepreneur. I honestly, maybe not right as of now, because I'm used to that fixed income. We like the bonus that comes in. So I don't know, but somewhere if I comes push to shove, then maybe you could take that plunge also. Sometimes it's not about only you and the money part of it. It's something that
No, I
drives
agree.
you
I
forward.
completely agree with you, and that's a very fair and a good thought. That if you are looking for a fixed income, then this path may not be the right path for you.
Yeah,
I mean, it's income is something which will fall eventually, which will come eventually, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that you have to keep others before you, I think so, in all of these things. When you become an entrepreneur, so right now we say that we work 5 days a week, 12 hours and all of this. When you become an entrepreneur, it is 24/7 and you keep people before you, right? It is first about your folks, about your people. Then is when you'll get your returns when you do that. So the mindset is a complete game changer from what we have in a corporate. I know there are funds, I know there is cash, I can just do the budgets. Now it's a reverse calculation, I think. First is about your people, your business, and then if there's something, it's about you. So that's a different satisfaction. Both these options have a different level of satisfaction and achievement at the end of the day.
Agree. Thank you. And really great to listen to your whole journey, knowing what almost 20 years where we all started.
Oh, yeah.
And there you are. It's commendable.
Anand was still writing filling the sheets when we were chatting in the parking that day in SB College, 30 years back.
Correct.
Right. Guru or Viral, any questions from you guys?
Yeah. Hi Rishi. Hi Sheetal.
Hey,
Hi everyone. Okay, I consider myself at very beginner stage, but again, I mean, the way I put myself, why I choose finance as my career was I was someone who, not want to have a salesperson tag behind my name actually. Wherein reaching at your stage now, Sheetal, is it that difficult actually? Because again, you have to pass the phase that you also need to be in sales, as you mentioned, HR and all. But for me, again, I mean, maybe I'm not that mature in terms of my thinking, but still, I mean, I still, if I see myself in progressing further, maybe sales will be a area that I will have, I mean, this sort of limitation or reservedness that being a finance guy, whether should I be on these shoes? I mean, so just like to have your thoughts.
Good question, I would say, Viral.
Yeah, I mean, it's very different now, this thing. But I tell you, whomever people I've spoken to in the organization who have like done like maybe they were in services delivery or R&D, I think at the end what they want to achieve is get into sales. Because that's a kick that you get, because that is directly correlational to the revenue that you get. One thing is there. So I think so if you have the inherent ability that you can go and pitch or sell, I think that is a brilliant thing. And honestly, if you see, for example, if you're in a chartered accountant firm, right, we have seen all our partners that first is to like go through all your like, they'll look at your chartered. But naturally, as it works through, you won't see anybody doing just the core finance or looking at audits. They all get into business development at the end of the day. So any big four firms, any other firm you say, 60% becomes business development and 40% will stay core finance. And that's how your growth progression happens, that you finally look towards as an entrepreneur in business. So even when I say that I love my fixed income, for me, I have to wear my entrepreneurial hat every time I'm running an operations. It cannot be that I'm just a director of a company or what it is. So your question is like very valid right now. And I don't think so it's difficult, because your end goal is going to be business development as you start reaching the heights. Because that's going to kind of resonate to you, because you will be the one who will be driving the functions, right? And getting the right revenues, achieving the goals and a lot of it. And you guys make an impact, or the sales guys make an impact. And that is when the rest of the functions follow, right?
Yep.
So I think that's one thing.
I think I would want to add to this. Viral, if you
Yeah.
allow me to.
Sure,
and
sure.
like
Yeah, right.
Sheetal very well said that even in the consulting firms, like any big four, once you are a senior manager and above, you carry targets. You have to, and you don't have to really sit and tally the balance sheet, right? So, and that is true for the business also. If you want to head the operations of a country or of head the business, you have to learn sales. And when I say, and I totally get where you're coming from, because I had a very similar thought process and impression of sales people and the sales function, that I don't want to, and I still carry it, having run my startup for 5 years. I'm still very particular that people I'm talking to should not form opinion of me as a sales guy, कि ये चिपकेगा, आपको चिपकाएगा, so and actually it all depends on us, how we because you have been a finance guy. When it's true for me, I can say that when I talk to people, I don't come across as a typical sales guy, and it also helps me sell because I'm more consultative in my approach. And I've seen this for everybody, that they feel more comfortable, that you're not pushy. That's a problem with sales guys, that they're too pushy, and that's why people repel. So you're not pushy, you reason out better. And that's where Sheetal was saying that now in that journey, you have to start now by understanding the business aspects much better through your journey. So that's, to me, is very, very important. Start now, and so that by the time you're ready, you are more comfortable in that skin, rather than finding it absolutely fish out of water. So start that journey now, becoming more involved in business. That would be my advice.
Right. Thank you so much, both of you. Thanks.
Yes, Guru, go ahead. Sorry, Sheetal, for hijacking that
No,
question.
no, absolutely. I mean, you have a better perspective to this. You run an operations completely.
Yes, Guru, I'm sorry, you were saying something.
Thanks, Sheetal. This was really wonderful. The best part I really enjoyed was what resonated well with me was the introvert part of it, right? So, I have just one question for you. So, in the long stint that you have with your present company, were there moments where you felt things aren't working, I should look out? And then, but you've made a real good career. What fascinated me to join this call was also finance manager to a MD. That tag was really, really nice.
I'll take credit for that.
You take credit.
Absolutely, you should. Yeah. So were there such moments, and then how did you combat that?
Honestly, they were very. Maybe there were twice or thrice that I had this thought. But the way I said, Guru, right, I'm very lazy and I procrastinate quite a bit. So to starting with a resume itself is nahi ho raha hai. There have been times where, the way I told you, right, when I had to give up that office, it wrenched my heart, honestly. It was very, very difficult for me to get this. And I was like, what am I doing here? But then you have to just stay back. You have to let those 24 hours go, because that time you're so agitated and all of these that you have to think for next couple of days, saying that whether it is worthwhile to move out. And honestly, for our setup of company right now, I'm just giving an example. We are 400 people, and in India right now, we were around 200, and now we have resized a bit. But I knew every person by the name. So every person who used to work for my cabin, I knew everyone by that name. And so did people know me. That used to give me an adrenaline rush that I have achieved something, that people know me by my name. So I don't want to get into a larger organization where I don't know what I'm doing. So I enter in the morning, just swipe my card, do my work, go back. That's not something that interests me. So even if I felt like doing that, and I just, honestly, I'll be very honest, I just did one interview, and that was way back in 2007 or 8. And then things just went ahead. And I think so I got a good news that I'm expecting. And then I was like, okay, chuck it out. I'll just stay with this company. And then it stayed. And things worked for me. But yeah, there have been times where it was very depressing. I have cried. There has been an emotional outburst. It has reflected on my family. All of these things do happen. But then you have to dwell back, and then you have to think through about what is the positive side to it with being with this company, and what are going to be more positives with looking out. So somewhere I used to give that thought, and then I used to be like, okay, I think so what I can do is that I can still manage things, I can add value, and the people, the culture has been good. There are going to be ups and downs, and so it does happen in your personal life. That doesn't mean that you have to always give up. So you think through, unless and things turn to an extreme. I never felt like actually looking out for a job.
Sheetal, I didn't want to really, I hate getting a gender thing into the discussion, but I'm still tempted to ask, especially after your this answer, that you think women in professional life by nature are more stable, versus men who start getting jittery about, more better opportunities, and in the whole process make themselves more unstable by jumping out more often, whatever. And it could be driven by their personal or professional ambitions. But like, I don't know, you thought probably you were lazy and that's why I didn't make CV. But most men I know would, spend good time in making CV very quickly. So, so you think that plays a
Yeah,
part?
I mean, comparatively, I think so. These are inherent traits that a man and a female has basically. We are still like, I think so. The emotional aspect is there, and something that you cling on to, you are like, okay, this is mine, and this is going to be mine. You're very possessive as a mother or as a girlfriend, whatever it is. So you have that possessiveness also with it. So anything you latch on to it, kind of. And men may be like, they think more practically comparatively. We take all aspects in nature. Our emotions play a lot of things. I mean, sometimes when I get annoyed, I mean, rarely would, I don't know, but I'm just saying a man would not shed a tear or something. But when we get annoyed, we'll see that females cry a lot when they have to see that. And I'm being honest about it, right? So these two play. So, and maybe that's one thing that I agree with you, that we are kind of little stable with all these things. I mean, we don't take this random decisions or quick decisions, because then we think from a lot of aspects about it, that it's a family, it's this, vice versa. So all of these do come into picture when it is.
Absolutely. So I think we are done. I don't think so we have anybody else on the call. So thanks a lot, Sheetal, for again another very good, insightful conversation. I think people would have a lot of takeaways, not only those who listen to you today live, but I'm sure a lot of them will be listening this as a recording. And I would say that, one of the thought process of starting Gap was to provide the platform for people to move out of their bean counting stage for finance people. And I would say especially for people like Viral who are still at early stages, that use this platform to interact and learn about business. Like, don't say that it's a supply chain issue or it's finance, it's a business thing. So learn about what others are saying, interact. And I'm going to have more forums where I would have opportunities for people from different functions to interact. So I think this can be a nice close group where you can start coming out of your comfort zone.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much, Rishi,
make use of that. And now let's have more such conversations. Do keep logging in. I do see you, Anand, on the platform, so it's very heartening. And so is Sheetal. So good to have old friends, coming back in with the interaction. So great. Thanks a lot, all of you. And thanks, Sheetal, once again. Wonderful inspiration.
Thanks for the platform.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.